My name is Olivia, and for as long as I can remember, my sister Emily was my anchor in this world. She was 2 years older than me, but it always felt like we were the same person split into two bodies. From childhood, people said we were inseparable. Teachers at school joked that if they saw one of us in the hallway, the other had to be close behind. We grew up sharing everything. Our bedroom was divided by a thin line of stuffed animals and posters, but there were countless nights when we ended up in the same bed, whispering secrets long after lights out. Emily was the first person I told when I had a crush in middle school, the first one who wiped away my tears when those crushes ended, and the one who swore she'd never let anyone hurt me. I trusted her the way you trust the sun to rise every morning. She wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend, my safe place, the one person I could lean on when the rest of the world felt too heavy. Our bond only grew stronger as we got older. High school was a battlefield of shifting friendships, rumors, and heartbreaks, but Emily and I always had each other. She would slip notes into my locker on days she knew I was struggling, with silly doodles or inside jokes that could make me laugh even when I wanted to cry. I returned the favor by sneaking into her room at night when she was upset after a breakup, lying next to her until she fell asleep. When our parents fought, which they often did, it was Emily who pulled me into the backyard and whispered, "It's just noise. Don't let it scare you. We have each other, and that's enough." And I believed her. No matter what storms raged inside our house, I felt safe knowing she was by my side. Even in college, when life pulled us onto different paths, we stayed closer than most sisters ever managed to be. I would call her before big exams, and she would text me pictures of her coffee-fueled all-nighters with silly captions. During holidays, we stayed up late like we were kids again, drinking cocoa and talking about everything, our dreams, our fears, even our regrets. Looking back now, I see how perfect it all seemed. I thought there was nothing in the world that could break us apart. Emily wasn't just my sister, she was the other half of my soul. But the truth I didn't know then was that sometimes the people closest to you aren't who you think they are. Sometimes the bond you treasure most is the very thing someone else is using to hide their darkest secrets. At the time, though, I was blissfully unaware. To me, Emily was still my best friend, my partner in crime, the person who would always put me first. And I had no reason to believe that would ever change. At first, the changes were so small that I brushed them off. Emily had always been the kind of person who could predict what I was going to say before I even said it, but over time it started to feel different. Almost like she knew things about me that I had never actually told her. I remember one evening vividly. I had just come home from work, exhausted, and I collapsed onto the couch. My phone buzzed with a text from an old friend I hadn't seen in years. It made me smile, but I didn't tell anyone, not even Emily. Yet later that night, while we were sitting in the kitchen drinking tea, Emily casually mentioned that I should be careful about reconnecting with people from the past. My stomach twisted because I hadn't breathed a word of that text to her. When I asked how she knew, she shrugged and said she could just tell by the look on my face. There were other moments too. Times when she'd change the subject suddenly if I asked about her day, or when she'd laugh nervously and say, "Don't worry about it," as if she were hiding something. She used to share every detail of her life with me, what she ate for breakfast, who she talked to at work, what book she was reading. But slowly, cracks began to appear. There were parts of her days she kept sealed off, like locked rooms in a house we had once lived in together. One afternoon, I came to her apartment unannounced. She opened the door with a startled expression, like I had caught her in the middle of something. The blinds were drawn, the room smelled faintly of smoke, and there was a stack of papers on the table she rushed to cover with a sweater. I wanted to ask, "What's going on? Why are you hiding things from me?" But the fear of pushing her away kept me quiet. Instead, I pretended not to notice, though the unease gnawed at me. Then there were the phone calls. Late at night, I would hear her whispering in hushed tones from her bedroom. When I asked in the morning who she was talking to, she always brushed it off with the same excuse, "Just work stuff." But it didn't feel like work. It felt secretive, almost desperate. The strangest part was how she always seemed to know where I had been, even when I hadn't told her. I'd stop at a cafe on my way home, and later she'd casually ask if I enjoyed my coffee. I'd go for a walk in the park, and she'd mention the weather there as if she had been standing right beside me. At first, I chalked it up to coincidence, but too many coincidences start to look like patterns. I began to notice the silences, too. Emily, who once filled every quiet moment with chatter, now seemed to retreat into herself. Sometimes, when I caught her staring at me across the room, there was something in her eyes I couldn't place. It wasn't the warmth I was used to. It was something sharper, something almost calculating. It was in those moments that I started to wonder if I really knew her at all. Still, I pushed the unease aside. She was my sister, my best friend. If I doubted her, what did that say about me? I told myself it was stress, that she was just dealing with things she wasn't ready to share. I convinced myself to be patient, to trust her the way I always had. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, and once it's there, it doesn't stop growing. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening, one of those nights when nothing special was supposed to happen. I had stopped by Emily's apartment after work, carrying a bag of takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. It had always been our little tradition: pad thai for me, green curry for her, and a long conversation about everything and nothing. It was a ritual that grounded me, a reminder that despite the growing distance, we were still sisters. When I arrived, she seemed distracted, her phone buzzing on the counter. She kept glancing at it, her shoulders tightening every time it vibrated. I tried to ignore it, but something about the way she immediately flipped it upside down, screen facing the table, made my stomach twist. We ate in silence for a while. I tried to fill the quiet with small talk about my day at work, about a difficult client who had made me question why I even stayed in that job. Normally, Emily would laugh, roll her eyes, and remind me of my worth. But that night, she only nodded absent-mindedly, her eyes distant, as though her mind was miles away. And then, without warning, it happened. I mentioned that I was planning to meet a coworker for drinks later in the week, a man named Daniel. I hadn't told Emily about him before, hadn't even mentioned his name. Her head snapped up instantly, her eyes sharp. "Daniel? From your office?" she asked. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I blinked at her. "Yes, how do you know that?" The question seemed to hang in the air like smoke. Emily's face shifted almost instantly, her expression smoothing into something casual. She laughed lightly, too quickly. "Oh, I don't know. I think you mentioned him before, right? But I knew I hadn't. I was certain." The only person I had ever talked to about Daniel was another coworker, and even then, it had been in passing. My sister wasn't supposed to know his name. I tried to brush it off, but the longer I stared at her, the more unsettled I felt. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and her hand gripped her glass a little too tightly. Something wasn't right. "Emily," I pressed, my voice quieter now. "I've never mentioned Daniel to you." Not once. For a brief second, the mask slipped. I saw it. The flash of panic in her eyes, the tightening of her jaw. But then, just as quickly, she shook her head and waved it off. "Maybe I heard you on the phone," she said. "You talk to me about so many people. I get confused sometimes." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to tell myself that I had simply forgotten, that maybe I had mentioned Daniel in passing and it hadn't registered at the time. But deep down, I knew the truth. Emily had slipped. She knew something she shouldn't have. The rest of the evening felt off. She kept steering the conversation away from me, asking questions about my coworkers, my schedule, my plans for the weekend. Normally, I would have found her interest comforting, but now it felt invasive, almost calculated. When I finally left her apartment, the night air felt colder than usual. I drove home, replaying the conversation in my head over and over. Each time it landed on the same haunting realization. My sister was keeping secrets from me, and worse, she was slipping just enough to reveal that she might know far more about my life than I had ever told her. For the first time in my life, I felt something I had never associated with Emily before. Fear. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the unease from the past few months roaring louder in my mind. Questions swirled endlessly. How did she know? Why did she know? And most terrifying of all, what else did she know that I didn't? The sister I had trusted with every secret of my soul was suddenly a stranger sitting across from me, hiding things behind careful smiles and convenient lies. And I had no idea what I was about to uncover. After that night with the Daniel slip, I couldn't shake the unease. It followed me like a shadow, whispering doubts every time I saw Emily's name pop up on my phone or heard her voice on the other end of the line. I tried to act normal when we spoke, tried to laugh at her jokes and nod along when she asked about my day. But under the surface, my mind was racing. I had always been the open book between us. If something happened in my life, Emily knew about it, sometimes before anyone else did. But now I realized that it had always been one-sided. For years, I had poured every detail of my life into her hands, trusting she would keep them safe. Yet when I thought about it carefully, I realized I knew so little about hers. That realization hit me like a blow. So one evening, while Emily was out, I did something I never thought I'd do. I drove to her apartment, using the spare key she had given me years ago when she told me, "You'll always have a place here." My hands shook as I unlocked the door, guilt already clawing at my stomach. But the need to know was stronger than my conscience. Her apartment was quiet, dimly lit by the fading sunset through half-drawn curtains. At first glance, it looked normal. Dishes neatly stacked in the sink, a blanket thrown across the couch, a faint vanilla candle scent lingering in the air. But as I walked through the rooms, I noticed the details I had ignored before, the way certain drawers were locked, the folders on her desk tucked deliberately under heavy books, the old laptop on her nightstand that I had never once seen her use in front of me. I started with the desk. Sliding the folders out carefully, I opened one and found a collection of old letters and printed emails. My heart raced as I skimmed them. Most were addressed to her, but not from people I recognized. They weren't friends, not family, not coworkers. The letters spoke in vague, almost cryptic ways. Mentions of arrangements, keeping her safe, and not telling Olivia yet. Seeing my name in black ink among strangers' words made my skin crawl. I stuffed the papers back quickly, my breath uneven. What could they possibly mean? Who were these people talking about me like I was some secret she needed to manage? Then I moved to the nightstand. The old laptop powered on with a low hum, but to my frustration, it required a password. I tried a few obvious guesses. Birthdays, childhood nicknames, our dog's name from when we were kids. Nothing worked. The screen stayed locked, a digital wall between me and whatever truth she was hiding. I was about to give up when I noticed the stack of notebooks shoved under her bed. They were old, worn, some with bent covers and frayed edges. Emily had always been a writer, jotting down poems, thoughts, and random ideas. But as I flipped through them, I realized these weren't journals in the usual sense. They were logs, detailed, precise notes about me. Every entry described where I had been, who I was with, what I had said. Some were benign, dates with boyfriends, classes I took, trips we went on together, but others were disturbingly specific. Olivia met Daniel at 6:45 p.m. on Tuesday, wearing her red jacket. She laughed when he told her the story about his brother. I felt my throat tighten as I read those words. How could she have known that? I had never told her about the story Daniel had shared, a private conversation over drinks. My blood turned cold as realization sank in. Emily hadn't just been my confidant. She had been watching me, recording me, like I was some kind of project. I dropped the notebook, my hands trembling so badly I thought I might collapse. That was when I heard the faint sound of keys jingling outside the door. Panic surged through me. She was home. Heart pounding, I shoved the notebook back under the bed and rushed to the living room, trying to look casual, as though I had just walked in. When Emily opened the door, her eyes flicked to me, startled. "Olivia? What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone sharp but laced with forced warmth. I forced a smile, praying my voice wouldn't betray me. I just wanted to borrow a book, You weren't answering your phone. She narrowed her eyes slightly but then relaxed, dropping her bag by the door. You should have texted. But you know you're always welcome. I nodded quickly, gripping my purse like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. Inside, my thoughts were screaming. She was lying, and now I knew it. What I didn't know yet was why. The days after I found the notebooks were unbearable. Every time I looked at Emily, I couldn't unsee the words I had read, the meticulous notes she had written about me. It was like living with a stranger in my sister's skin. I kept trying to convince myself that maybe there was a rational explanation, but the excuses I created in my mind grew thinner and weaker by the hour. I wanted to confront her right away, to demand answers, but fear kept my mouth shut. Fear of what she might say. Fear that the sister I had loved and trusted all my life would confirm my darkest suspicion, that our bond had been nothing but a carefully crafted illusion. But eventually, I couldn't keep it inside any longer. One night we sat together in her apartment. The TV hummed in the background, playing some reality show neither of us was paying attention to. Emily was scrolling on her phone, and I was staring at her, my chest tightening with every second of silence. "Emily," I finally said, my voice trembling. She glanced up, her eyebrows raised. "Yeah? I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. No more jokes, no more excuses." Her phone slipped slightly in her hand before she set it down. "What's going on?" I swallowed hard. My palms were sweaty, my throat dry. "Why do you always know things you shouldn't? How do you know about people I never told you about? About places I've been? About conversations no one else could have heard?" For a moment, the air in the room thickened. Emily's face remained calm, but her eyes gave her away. They darted to the side, searching for a response. "Olivia," she began, but then stopped, exhaling shakily. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together. "Just tell me," I pressed, my voice sharper now. "Tell me the truth." Finally, she whispered, "I've been keeping track of you." The words hit me like a physical blow. I flinched. Keeping track? What does that even mean? Her eyes glistened with tears, but she forced herself to meet my gaze. "I needed to know you were safe. That's all. Ever since we were kids, I worried about you. You've always been so trusting, so open with people. I couldn't stand the thought of something happening to you." I stared at her in disbelief. "So you... what? Followed me? Spied on me? Wrote down every detail of my life in those notebooks like I'm some experiment?" She froze. I hadn't meant to reveal that I'd seen them, but the words slipped out. Her face went pale. "You went through my things," she said quietly, more shocked than angry. "I had to," I shot back, "because you've been lying to me. I thought you were my sister, my best friend. But what you've been doing, it's not normal, Emily. It's not love, it's obsession." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time I saw guilt etched across her face. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I couldn't stop. Watching you, writing it down, knowing where you were, it made me feel like I still had control, like I could protect you." "Protect me from what?" I demanded. She hesitated. Her lips parted as though she was about to say something, but then she shook her head. "You wouldn't believe me," she said. "Not yet." "Try me," I said coldly. But she didn't. Instead, she buried her face in her hands and cried softly. Between sobs, she murmured, "I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how else to keep you safe." I sat there, my body rigid, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her the way I always had. But another part of me recoiled, screaming that this wasn't the sister I thought I knew. She had confessed just enough to make me question everything, but not enough to give me peace. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The truth she was hiding had to be far worse than anything I was imagining. After Emily's partial confession, nothing between us felt the same. I couldn't look at her without hearing her words echoing in my head. "I've been keeping track of you." She had admitted it so quietly, almost tenderly, as if spying on me, documenting every step of my life, could ever be considered love. But the part that haunted me most was what she didn't say. Protect you from what? She never answered. And the longer she avoided it, the louder that question grew inside me. So I did something I promised myself I wouldn't do again. I went back to her apartment when she wasn't home. This time, I wasn't looking for vague clues or coincidences. I wanted proof. Hard evidence. Something that could finally explain the years of strange behavior and the lies she fed me. I started with the desk again. My hands trembled as I rifled through the folders. Most of the papers were things I had seen before. Letters, half-finished drafts, receipts. But deeper inside one folder, tucked between blank sheets of paper, I found something new. A manila envelope. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. At first, my breath caught because they were of me. Some I recognized, birthday parties, family gatherings, holidays where Emily had been holding the camera. But others made my blood run cold. Pictures of me walking to work, sitting in a cafe, talking to friends at the park, standing in front of my apartment building at night, keys in hand, all of them taken from a distance. None of them posed. None of them with my knowledge. I felt sick. My stomach twisted violently as I flipped through them, my vision blurring with tears. She had followed me. She hadn't just kept notes. She had been physically watching me, documenting my every move. At the bottom of the envelope was a small notebook, different from the others I had seen. Inside, each page was dated and organized, like a logbook. And it wasn't just notes about me. It included descriptions of people I was with, friends, co-workers, even strangers I had only spoken to once or twice. Emily had written everything: what they wore, how they spoke, even her impressions of their character. But the last few entries were what truly froze me. She had written about Daniel. "Daniel seems too close to her. Can't be trusted. Watch interactions carefully." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the notebook. She had been watching me with him. She had been there somewhere close, cataloging my private moments as if my life were a case file. And then I saw the final line, scribbled hastily across a page dated just last week. "She still doesn't know, but soon she will. I can't protect her forever." My entire body went cold. What did that mean? What couldn't she protect me from? Who was she protecting me against? I shoved the photographs and notebook back into the envelope, my breath ragged. I wanted to run, to get as far away from that apartment as possible, but my legs felt like lead. My mind raced with possibilities. Was Emily mentally ill? Was she hiding something dangerous? Or was there truly some kind of threat that I couldn't see, but she could? When I finally stumbled out of her apartment, the world outside felt different. Every shadow looked menacing. Every stranger's gaze seemed to linger too long. And for the first time, I wasn't just afraid of what Emily knew. I was afraid of what was coming. The night after I discovered the photographs, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's handwriting. Those words about protecting me. Those unsettling notes about Daniel. Those candid pictures of me that I had never known existed. It was like my entire life had been under a microscope, not by strangers, not by enemies, but by the one person I trusted more than anyone else. By morning, I knew I couldn't keep silent anymore. The questions were eating me alive, and I needed answers, no matter how painful they were. I confronted her that evening. She was sitting at the kitchen table in our mother's house, sipping tea like nothing was wrong. I stood in the doorway, clutching the envelope of photos in my trembling hands. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking, "what is this?" Her eyes widened when she saw the envelope, her teacup rattling against the saucer. For a second, she looked like a child caught red-handed. Then her face hardened, and she straightened her posture. "You went through my things again," she said flatly. I ignored the accusation and dropped the envelope onto the table. The photos spilled out like an avalanche, me laughing with friends, me unlocking my apartment door, me sitting at my desk at work, her careful, obsessive record of my life exposed under the kitchen light. "Why, Emily?" My voice cracked. Why would you do this to me? Her hands trembled as she gathered the photos into a pile, but she didn't meet my eyes. Because you don't understand, Olivia. You never understood. I wasn't doing this to hurt you. Then what? To control me? To make sure I never had a life outside of you? She slammed her palm on the table, startling me. No, I did it to protect you. The room went silent. My chest rose and fell quickly, my pulse racing. Protect me from what? I demanded. Her lips quivered. She hesitated, her eyes darting toward the doorway as if she feared someone might overhear. Finally, she whispered, From people like him. Who? I asked, confused. Her gaze locked onto mine, and I saw a storm in her eyes. Daniel, the others before him, you think they cared about you? They didn't. They wanted something from you, and I wasn't going to let them take it. Her words hit me like a slap. Are you saying you ruined my relationships? That you sabotaged me all these years? She didn't deny it. Tears filled my eyes as the memories came rushing back. The boy in high school who ghosted me without explanation. The college friend who suddenly turned distant. The co-worker who stopped talking to me right when we were becoming close. One by one, all the connections I had lost over the years, connections I thought had simply fizzled out, now looked suspiciously orchestrated. You did this? My voice was barely a whisper. You took them away from me? Emily's voice cracked as she said, I had to. You don't see people the way I do. They were wrong for you. They would have hurt you. I couldn't let that happen. I staggered back, gripping the edge of the counter for support. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound I had ever felt. You weren't protecting me, I said through tears. You were controlling me. You were isolating me. You made sure I had no one but you. Her face crumbled, and for a brief moment, she looked devastated. I only ever wanted you to be safe. To be mine. The words chilled me to the bone. To be mine. That was when I finally understood. It had never been about protection. It had never been about love in the way I thought. Emily's devotion to me wasn't sisterly. It was something darker, something possessive, something that had consumed her for years. The sister I had once seen as my best friend had never really been protecting me at all. She had been caging me. I stumbled out of the kitchen after Emily's confession, my chest heaving, tears blurring my vision. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped the envelope of photos onto the hallway floor. The images scattered around me like shards of glass, each one a cruel reminder that my entire life had been monitored, manipulated, rewritten by the person I trusted most. I pressed my back against the wall and slid to the floor, gasping for air. My sister's words kept echoing in my head, over and over, like a curse I couldn't escape. I only ever wanted you to be safe. To be mine safe? I didn't feel safe at all. I felt trapped, suffocated, violated. Every memory we had shared together, the nights whispering secrets under the covers, the times she promised to protect me from our parents' arguments, the moments when I thought she was my only real friend, all of it twisted in my mind like poison. What if none of it had been genuine? What if every smile, every hug, every comforting word was just another way to keep me dependent on her? The questions ripped me apart from the inside. I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw at the walls and rip the photographs into pieces. I wanted to run as far as I could from Emily and never look back. But the cruelest part was that a small, desperate voice inside me still longed for her. Still remembered the girl who once held my hand in the dark and told me I wasn't alone. How could I hate her and love her at the same time? I didn't know who she was anymore. And worse, I didn't know who I was anymore. Was I the independent woman I thought I had become? Or just a puppet dancing on strings Emily had been pulling for years? That night I locked myself in my bedroom, the door barricaded with a chair, as if Emily might come in. My phone buzzed relentlessly, texts from her, pleading, apologizing, begging me to understand. I couldn't bring myself to read them. Each vibration sent another jolt of panic through me, another wave of nausea. Sleep never came. Instead, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my body trembling, tears soaking into the pillow. Every creak of the house made me jump, convinced she was standing outside my door. By morning, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale, my hair tangled into knots. I had always thought of myself as strong, as someone who could handle life's storms as long as Emily was beside me. But now, stripped of her protection and poisoned by her betrayal, I was nothing but a hollow shell. And that's when the breakdown hit me fully. I sank to the bathroom floor and sobbed until my throat burned, until my chest ached with the force of it. I couldn't stop. The grief, the anger, the confusion, it poured out of me all at once, leaving me shaking and empty. I wanted my sister back. I wanted the bond we had. But deep down, I knew the truth. That bond was gone. Maybe it had never been real to begin with. And as I curled into myself, rocking back and forth like a child, I realized that the girl who once believed her sister was her best friend had died the moment I saw those photographs. What remained was a broken woman, standing at the edge of a truth too heavy to carry and too dangerous to ignore. For days, I avoided Emily. I ignored her texts, silenced her calls, and refused to answer the knocks at my door. But no matter how far I tried to run, the truth gnawed at me. I couldn't live in limbo anymore. I couldn't keep pretending her half-confessions were enough. If I was ever going to reclaim my life, I needed to look her in the eye and demand everything she had kept from me. So one evening, when the sky was painted in heavy gray clouds, I drove to her apartment. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I rehearsed the words in my head over and over, but by the time I stood at her door, every practiced line had dissolved into raw fear. She opened the door almost immediately, as if she had been waiting for me. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed with red. "Olivia," she whispered, like my name was both a relief and a curse. I stepped inside without asking. The apartment felt suffocating, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and something sour I couldn't place. The curtains were drawn tight, shutting out the world. "I'm done with your excuses," I said, my voice sharper than I expected. "You're going to tell me everything." Right here, right now, Emily flinched but nodded slowly. She motioned for me to sit, but I stayed standing, arms crossed, my heart pounding. "I need to know," I continued. "All of it. The spying, the notes, the pictures, the sabotage. Why, Emily? Why would you do this to me?" For a long moment, she just stared at me, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Then she spoke, her voice trembling. "Because you don't see the world the way I do. You trust too easily. You let people in who don't deserve you. I couldn't stand by and watch them use you, break you, destroy you. So yes, I interfered. I scared them away. I made sure you wouldn't get hurt." Her words struck me like icy water. "You destroyed me, Emily. You took away my choices. You made sure I had no one but you. That's not protection. That's control." Her expression twisted, her voice breaking as she cried out, "I did it because I love you!" The room went silent. My breath caught in my throat. "You're my sister," I whispered, my voice shaking. "You're supposed to love me in a way that lifts me up, not chains me down. This obsession of yours, it isn't love." Its poisoned tears streamed down her face, but she shook her head violently. "You don't understand. If you knew what I know, you'd thank me. You'd see why I had to do it." I took a step closer, my hands trembling. "Then tell me. Tell me what you know. Tell me what's so terrible that you thought you had the right to steal my life away from me." Emily's lips quivered. She looked at me like a cornered animal, torn between confessing and keeping the last shred of her secret intact. Finally, she whispered, "They were coming for you." "Who?" I demanded. "The people Dad was involved with," she said, her voice barely audible. "You think you know who he was, but you don't. After he died, they started watching me. I knew if I didn't keep you close, if I didn't make sure you stayed away from the wrong people, they'd use you, just like they tried to use me." Her words were wild, desperate, My mind reeled. Was she telling the truth? Or was this another twisted lie to justify her obsession? I shook my head, unable to process it all. You should have told me, Emily. You should have trusted me. I couldn't, she said, tears streaking her face, because once you knew you'd run. And if you ran, I couldn't protect you anymore. I'd lose you, and losing you was never an option. Her voice broke on the last word, and for the first time, I saw her not as my sister or my betrayer, but as a deeply broken person consumed by fear and obsession. But knowing that didn't fix the wreckage she had left behind. Standing there, I realized that no matter what explanation she gave, no matter what stories she told, the truth was simple. Emily had betrayed me. She had stolen my freedom, my relationships, my trust, and nothing could give those years back. I turned toward the door, my decision clear. I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice hollow. Not with you. Her cry followed me out, raw and desperate, but I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I walked away from Emily. Not as her sister, not as her best friend, but as someone finally breaking free of her chains. Leaving Emily's apartment that night felt like walking out of a nightmare and into an empty world I no longer recognized. The streets were quiet, the air heavy with the smell of rain, and each step echoed with the weight of everything I had just learned. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I had a sister anymore, or if she had ever truly been the sister I thought she was. At home, I collapsed onto the couch and stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning with fragments of the past. Every laugh we shared, every tear we wiped away, every whispered secret under the covers of our childhood bedroom, all of it replayed like broken glass, sharp and distorted. Could I still hold on to those memories, or had they been poisoned forever? Days passed, and Emily kept trying to reach me. Dozens of texts, missed calls, even letters slipped under my door. Some were apologies, some were explanations, some were desperate pleas for me to see her side. I read a few, but most I couldn't bring myself to open. Each word felt like a trap designed to pull me back into her web. Yet, despite everything, a part of me hesitated. She was my sister, the person who had shaped my childhood, the one constant in a family full of chaos. Walking away from her meant not just ending a toxic relationship, it meant erasing a part of myself. But then I thought of the photographs, the notebooks, the years of lies, the way she admitted, without shame, to cutting people out of my life so I would never have anyone but her. That wasn't love. That was possession. And I knew if I let her back in, she would never stop. One afternoon, I drove to the park where we used to sit as teenagers, sharing snacks and talking about our dreams. Emily was already there, sitting on the bench, as if she had known I would come. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but I kept my distance. I don't know how to do this, I said, my voice trembling. Part of me wants to believe you were just trying to protect me. But another part of me knows you crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered, I can change. I'll get help, therapy, medication, whatever it takes. Just don't leave me. I shook my head, feeling my own tears burn hot against my cheeks. This isn't about leaving you, Emily. It's about saving myself. For so long, I let you decide who I was, who I could be with, how I could live. I can't do that anymore. I won't. Her face crumbled, and for a moment I thought she might collapse right there on the bench, but I stood firm. This is my choice, I continued. I forgive you, for me, not for you, but I can't trust you, and without trust, there's nothing left between us. I need to walk away now. Maybe one day, things will be different, but today, this is goodbye. The silence between us was unbearable. She reached out a trembling hand, but I stepped back. For the first time, I chose distance over closeness, freedom over the chains of her obsession. I turned and walked away, my legs heavy, my heart breaking, but also, strangely, lighter than it had been in years. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized that love and loyalty, even between sisters, can sometimes become dangerous, and sometimes the bravest choice is to let go. That night, as I lay in bed, the ache in my chest was sharp, but there was also clarity. I had chosen myself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt enough.